Hello, everyone. My name is Jaime Zamora, and I have here Kyle and William. We are Team 4, and we'll be introducing our final project, which is going to address some of the goals, the directions, and feedback that we've learned throughout the course from a leader to an employee. We'll lean a lot on the disc profiles to make sure that we're addressing some of those very unique scenarios that happen every day at work. And obviously some of those leaders that understand that disc profile help facilitate some of those employees move from an, I would say, intro level to that expertise level. We're gonna talk about a couple of things where from a diagnosis perspective, from a contracting perspective, from a redirection and praise affirmation. That's some of the key elements that we'll introduce in this exercise. And we'll have a script, I would say, that you'll be able to follow in our video just to kind of see that scenario where you're seeing the leader introduce the pretty much the problem that we're dealing with, and also the employee, how it would react, and somewhat a simulation exercise that we're doing here. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and start with our first scenario, which is it involves a new employee whose disc profile is an ID. Our goal here is to set up it's a goal setting exercise. In this particular scenario, we are onboarding, like as I mentioned, a brand new employee into our company. It's a very energetic and relationship focused type of interaction. Our leadership style will be a high direction, S1 kind of low support. We'll have some transformational focus to inspire some vision, to enable action, and we'll cultivate some of that motivation and across our conversation. So for this particular scenario, I'll be the leader, Kyle will be the employee, and then we'll have a postmortem that William will help us kind of facilitate. So without any further ado, I'll go ahead and kick it off and kind of dive into this first scenario. All right. Okay. Welcome to Quantum AI, Kyle. We are really excited to have you here. Your creativity will be a key, essential element as we dive into this new AI products with you and the company.
Dude, yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited to dive in and start working on this. I'm so eager to learn and invest myself. I just need to know, what should I be focusing on first?
Sure, absolutely. So, look, what I would like to do for this first upcoming, I would say, months, I would like to put in a structure on a weekly basis. So, on week 1, what we can do is we'll complete the onboarding and shadow 2 stand-ups. On week 2, let's tackle a first small UI ticket and pair you with somebody that that is really an expert on it, already doing it. And then on week 3. I'll let you lead and brainstorming session with one of the new futuristic ideas that we're dealing with. And then on week 4, we'll present a prototype demo during a Friday innovation huddle that I'd like to host. How does that sound?
All right, yeah, I mean, that sounds like a lot, but it's all really exciting to me. That kind of gives me a roadmap to follow. So yeah, I already have some ideas for that accessibility onboarding.
Perfect, Lau. I love the energy. What do you think you'll need from us? I know it's moving fast, but is there anything that I can help you out to stay on track?
Yeah, so I'm ready to go. Maybe just a better understanding of the design system that we'll be working in, and some more of the backend API basics and how that works.
Perfect. I'll arrange a quick workshop with one of the UI teams and DevOps leads this week to make sure that we're diving into some of that complexity for you. Also, we'll do a weekly. I would say maybe on Friday at 101. So to celebrate some of the wins and maybe remove some of the blockers that you might be dealing with. Innovation. It's not perfect, but it is our metric.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Yeah, I'll go ahead and start working, and I'll bring some of my design sketches and some questions that I have to our first one-on-one meeting, so we can get that started right away.
That's the spirit, Kyle. Let's make our first month a launch pad for major impact and more projects to come. Thank you.
Perfect.
Great. Perfect. So that concludes our first, I would say, scenario where we'll dive into somewhat of a post-mortem, where we'll see some of the things that went right and went wrong. But William, please kick us off.
Yeah, as far as this post-mortem, I would say there's a lot more praise from my point of view. And in fact, this is about praise and redirection. But basically, I think, as far as the approach, I mean, as a leader, you brought enthusiasm for an enthusiastic employee. You're very interactive for a person with an I-style disc. You brought the excitement, whether it's behavioral or performance based. I mean, it's mostly, I think, about performance based. There's no real behavioral problems to note. He's brand new, and you just get him on track. As far as analyzing what worked or didn't, I mean, he's basically D1. You gave him an S1 style approach. It seemed like you guys were both clear, understood each other, what was going back and forth. You did talk a lot about relationships and who he's going to work with and follow. And I think that kind of hyped him up, just because he is an IDIS style. And then as far as transformational element, I mean, I think it was mostly praise and direction. You addressed concerns, and then, he wanted you to clarify the process. You did that. And then you basically gave him a push off in a nice, kind way just to get him going, and he responded to it, and he was off and running from what I can gather. So I don't have a lot of negatives to bring up. I mean, I think if he was like a different personality style, maybe you would have gotten into the details a little bit more about the process. But I mean, you stayed mostly in tune with the relationship process, which I think being an I style that he would respond to. So I think it went well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I will. I think, for new hires, structure is key. I think that's kind of something that we were really trying to address right from the gate. And then also like structure that is materialized, right? Like, hey, on first week, we're going to do this. On the second week, we're going to do that. I think the check-ins also are definitely important to make sure like that one-on-one moment that everything is going well when nobody else is in the room. And then maybe from what could be, somewhat of an improvement, you know, being able to get early feedback is important. Maybe two things that I can think of is one, maybe a mid-month peer review, or maybe have somebody that they're shadowing that could provide also feedback. Hey, how is Kyle doing? Like, based on this KPIs, can you tell me a little bit what you're seeing from an external standpoint? That could probably help, but that's some of those things that as I mentioned, like early feedback for correction is better than
Makes
late
sense.
feedback. That's my only thought. Kyle, any thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. I love your idea of having a shadow or a peer mentor to help with that first project that they're doing in this first month. But yeah, no, like you said, here we have, the ID, someone highly motivated and characteristic. They're excited to get started. They just don't have the technical skills yet to apply. So, when we're dealing with someone in a D1 like this, they definitely need high direction to know exactly how to apply themselves. But, they're already motivated and excited and to be here, so they don't need as much support as others would. So I think the roadmap we gave this employee reflects that sort of high direction for the first month, checking in, here's your goals. They're spread out with a week each to complete them, but we have check-ins in between. And like you said, maybe have you do a peer review halfway through would be just perfect to get this guy moving up to the D2 area.
All right, perfect. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you, Kyle. All right, so moving forward to our scenario two. This is a little bit of kind of what we've been talking about. From that performance perspective, what to expect. In this particular in scenario two, we're gonna have an experienced team member rather than a new one. Whose this profile is a CS. And performance, and we're gonna work on a performance redirection. In this particular scenario, we met with a CS profile team member. They are praise and structure, but the results are slipping a little bit. So the leadership style that we're going to address is a high direction, high support, S2. And then, from a transformational focus, we're going to challenge the process. Tech leadership overlay is going to be somewhat of an internal facilitation. So, full circle, somebody that is somebody has been in the team for a while. The results are somewhat slipping, and we're just going to go ahead and try to turn things around in the best way possible. In this particular scenario, we're going to have William as a leader, and then Kyle will be the employee, and then I'll just follow up with some of the postmortem after the scenario. All right, guys. So Kyle and William, please kick it away.
Hey, Kyle, thanks for making time today. I reviewed the Jira sprint reports and I noticed an uptick in unresolved tickets, about 20% above team average. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I've been taking some time to double check my work a bit more than I used to. Some stories have also expanded beyond sort of the initial scope, so we're seeing some additional workload that I wasn't expecting here. That would probably attribute to that, the deficit.
Okay, I appreciate your focus on quality, no doubt, but the perfection seems to delay delivery. It just doesn't seem as it's actually doing so. We got that 20% change up there. So, what's getting most stuck right now, do you feel?
Yeah, I get this moment of hesitation right before merging, into the final form, unless it feels perfect, it feels flawless. I don't want to make a mistake and push it to the final version, something that might not be perfect. So it's taken me some extra cycles to get it through, but that's where my hesitation comes in.
Okay, that's understandable, but let's prioritize here. Let's focus only on the critical path tickets and defer the minor bugs or polish items. And would a peer review mid-sprint help you feel confident to merge earlier?
Yeah, reorganizing it like that could help my workflow a bit. And, definitely having someone check my work before I push it to live would help me feel better. Yeah.
Okay, well, perfect. I'll arrange peer reviews on Wednesdays then, and let's document change requests more tightly in Confluence so scope doesn't creep unexpectedly.
Right. Yeah, that gives me sort of a boundary so that you're right. It doesn't get so out of pace here from my normal metrics, right?
Okay, excellent. Your attention to detail is a strength. We just need to pace it strategically.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right, perfect, guys. Absolutely. It's so interesting how this happens so much. Definitely one of those things where, going fast doesn't mean it's going well, right? Or vice versa. Sometimes the speed is needed to output a necessary, I would say. I, w- I've always heard that if you launch something too perfect, you launched it too late, right?
Hmm.
There is a reason why you have a version two, a version three, or a fast follow. And I think this particular scenario really speaks to that. We have lead developers that are so good at what they do. They kind of get on the weeds of, hey, like it has to be perfect, or my brand is on the line. But the company's commitment to maybe like a board of members is super important as well. So being able to deploy efficiently is super important. I think what William, what you did, and also Kyle, what you did, were super key in my opinion. So William, from a leader, I think you introduced, hey, let's just kind of prioritize the hot ticket items that are critical for their critical path. Meaning, like without this, we can't launch, right? So let's definitely prioritize those. We're always gonna have bugs, but not everything can be a high priority, right? So so I think that was an awesome delegation from your end, and then introducing that check-in. More importantly, like the documents that request or any change requests that are happening, which happen in a product a lot, to also be documented in Confluence. I think it was awesome too for all in. Hey, this is what the processes look like, and also this is how kind of like the check and balances are going to help us facilitate the overall process. So no, I mean, really good all around. Any thoughts, Kyle, from your end?
Yeah, this guy is very, with the CS, they're very stable mind, like to minimize risk, so they're used to their process. They're afraid to make those mistakes. Like you said, sort of a peer review to help build that confidence is a great first start. I would, as a leader, try to focus on reassuring this employee that, nobody's perfect. Your work has been excellent so far. You've just been dipping lately. So we want to give you the support and, that permission to keep moving forward. And it's okay to make mistakes once in a while. So I would try prioritizing, praising the good work of this employee and minimize the mistakes and the failures so we can build that confidence so they can get back to that initial metric.
William, what do you think?
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Kyle was saying, I think it's mostly in this case, it's about praise and getting priorities straight, mildly redirection, if at all. Really, I think it's. I mean, it might be a little bit about behavior in the sense that not having to make it so perfect and then focus on and reaching goals. but the performance has been there in the past. It's going to be there in the future. That's why he's working with them. He's definitely showing the high direction and high support, more of an S2 D2 situation. And he is very much focused on the process. In fact, they're challenging the process right now by having the redirects and the every 2 week meetings. So I think overall it went quite well. And again, I think just keeping people on track for their goals, giving them the encouragement, working with their personality style, and you'll get goals met. So
Yeah,
it sounds like they have a good relationship too. So
yeah, no, perfect. And like this interaction was very fact driven as well. Hey, this is what I need you to do. This is what I need you to prioritize. As we pivot to the scenario 3, I think we're gonna see a little bit of I wouldn't say the opposite, but definitely more on the fuzzy feels inside of how do I feel about this interaction. More of a cultivating, motivating, I would say approach. And that's kind of what the scenario 3 is actually going to introduce us to. So, on this particular scenario, we have a mid-tenure team member, so somewhat relatively not a senior level, but definitely somebody that's been with us already enough, and it needs somewhat of a confidence boost, right? Confidence rebuild. The team member is a DISC SI, and we are supporting discourage mid tenure SI profile. That's really the goal of this interaction. The leadership style that we're going to follow is going to be a high support, low direction. So it's going to be just like, hey, hitting that right here, a kind of moment. And then from a transformational focus, the goal is to encourage the heart, right? So teach leadership overlay is more on the cultivating motivation. So as I mentioned, right, this is when it's going to be more on the feels and motivational approach that somebody that maybe is dealing with a burnout or is just discouraged all around needs a boost. So on this particular scenario, we're going to have Kyle be the leader. I'll play the employee, and then William will help us out on the post-mortem, after our role play here. So Kyle, please kick us away.
Awesome. Well, great, Jaime. Thanks for meeting with me today. I noticed you seemed a little off during sort of our recent retro sessions. I just want to know, how have you been feeling about your work lately?
I'm worried, man. I keep thinking about missing important bugs, and I don't want to let the team down. That's where my head is at right now.
Yeah, man, I feel that. It's very relatable, and I appreciate your honesty there. Like last sprint, you were doing great. You actually caught, 2 major issues that helped us a lot. It saved significant downtime in our work. So like that was a huge win. What do you feel that right now is most overwhelming to you?
I just feel like I'm trying to cover too many modules at once, to be honest.
Right, splitting that focus and multitasking, it can definitely add some stress. Let's try narrowing your focus down a bit. So maybe just for this sprint, let's target you towards regression testing, just on the payments modules we have. So focus, sharp, one win at a time, and less spreading yourself too thinly. How would that sound?
That actually would help a lot.
That's awesome to hear. Let's try going with that. I think I'll pair you with Sam for some exploratory testing support. She's really good at that, and we'll celebrate your wins during our Friday stand-up. I really want you to know that you're valued here, Jaime.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, to be quite honest with you, and thank you for checking in on me. I know I haven't been too vocal about it, but yeah, definitely there are a lot of stress. I don't want to let the team down, but just narrowing things down to your point, just one quick win would definitely help me. And I love working with Sam, so that would be awesome too to kind of dive into that. So yeah, thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
That means
good
a
to
lot to
hear.
me.
Let's just try and, yeah, exactly, rebuild some of that team motivation, and yeah, we'll get you guys back on track this sprint.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, cool. So that was our third scenario, and we're just gonna go. We're gonna look into addressing some of the post-mortem. William, what did you think?
Overall, I thought it was very good. It's definitely more of like an employee in a D3 situation. Needed a lot of support. The leader gave him an S3 approach with that support. I think it was both behavioral and performance based. Um, you know, I think it was really good. You did touch on the relationship. You were a valued employee. You let them know that. You did talk about celebrating past wins, and you laid out a structure to where he'd be motivated to keep going on that path. And then you also talked about the future. We're going to celebrate more future wins, just like we have in the past. So um, I guess the negatives are hard to find, but I would say just encouraging the relationship, encouraging the love. That was the transformational element here. And I think you guys were doing that based on the relationship. In reality, you could fine tune that, on a more personal basis. But, in the scope of the amount of dialogue that you had, I think you did do that. So it's very supportive, very encouragement. You're transformative in the vision and with a lot of support. And also, I think, at the very end, you kind of again gave him a push off, like similar to the last time, but this time for someone who was a little more seasoned employee. You just kind of had a vision of the past, present, and future, and let's just keep it moving forward. Let's get this going. So I liked it overall.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah.
Kyle, anything from your answer?
Yeah, I thought it was a good example. Like you said, we see this a lot with burnout, getting spread too thin, or not seeing enough results and feeling that your efforts are not going to the team well enough. So yeah, this is where we really encourage from the heart, rebuild that confidence. This person's got the technical skills. We know they can do it. It's just about, being spread too thin. So we can correct that with a little simple leadership change, reorganize some stuff. We can reroute some resources to take over what Jaime won't be doing anymore from their daily work, and allow them to really focus on what is going to boost that motivation again. So I think it's a really interesting example of situational leadership. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I think that two things from my end. Definitely, it's not just words, right? Like we are actually taking something from your scope, right? That's and then just prioritizing something. It's not just like, hey, good job, or try harder, work harder, jump faster, right? It's like, no, look, listen, we acknowledge that you're going through some things. We're gonna remove some of your scope. We're gonna pivot to focus here and just kind of redirecting and focusing overall, just a motivational all-in approach. Like, hey, like, it's not that you're doing wrong. It's just more like, hey, focus on this first best win first, and we'll kind of move forward from there. And then from an improvement perspective, also, I think like this can be at an individual level, but also at a macro level. Which is a public high five. A public share. Hey, the team did great. You stood out the most, or you actually killed it over there, William. Or hey, thanks a lot. Publicly in a public scenario, I think it goes a long way, right? There's that recognition moment. I think it, I'm always thinking about like not to overdo it, but I don't think there is such a thing. I mean, it can be, right? But I'd rather be more on the overdoing it standpoint of like celebrating people and motivating people and publicly saying, hey, good job, that being in the other end, which is like not doing it at all. Like, I think that's going to hurt way more than trying to overdo it. So the leader, I would say, it's good to emphasize on that always, given that emotional high five for sure.
Nice.
Perfect, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving on to scenario 4. This is kind of going back to that new team member who's a DI. But we are at this point somewhat in a tricky situation because we gotta correct a behavioral action that he's doing. So this one's not not as nice as the other one. So in this particular one, in this scene, we are correcting unacceptable behavior from a DI profile, fast, direct, competitive kind of style. The leader has to be very straightforward, low support. This is not a negotiable kind of conversation. And the transformational focus is more on the model the values. Like, look, we don't do this here, right? This is core to us, and either you get with it or you don't kind of moment. And then from an overlay leadership, manage the ambiguity, right? So like, if you didn't know, now you know, right? But moving forward, like, this will not continue kind of moment. So which is kind of those tough situations to have, but they happen, and they have to be addressed. So on this particular scenario, we're gonna have me as a leader. William will play as the employee, and then Kyle will help us with the postmortem. All right. So let me go ahead and get us started. Hey, Will, thanks for joining me. I wanted to talk to you about yesterday's code review comment to Kyle. This approach was just wrong.
Yeah, I didn't mean anything bad. I just thought it was wrong and wanted to move faster.
I get the intent, speed matters, but when feedback feels personal, it shuts people down. Our norm here is critique the work, not the person. Can you see the impact?
Yeah, I didn't think of it like that.
I need you to apologize to Kyle today, please. And I'm moving forward. Call out what needs to improving, not who did it. Deal?
Got it. I'll talk to Kyle right after this.
Good. You drive is an asset. Let's just keep it constructive. All right. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
All right, we'll do.
All right. Cut. All right, guys. One of those tough situations, but they need to happen. Kyle, what do you think went right? What do you think went wrong?
Yeah, it's interesting seeing, this confident sort of competitive DI profile that wants to move fast. When you want to stay on that competitive edge, it means taking quick and swift action, but this can always result in mistakes or brushing heads. I come from sort of the gaming space, and we see this a lot with competitive teams, esports, even our cyber ninja competition team at UAT. When people want to be competitive, they might see the right play of action that makes sense to them, and then they'll just take that action because we want to be on that leaderboard. But that can cause you to bump heads with teammates if you're not communicating right, and this can happen. So yeah, I think it's interesting um, coaching a person like this to make sure your skills are good, and we appreciate your swiftness, but you have to care about your fellow teammates. You can't just tell them off and tell them they're wrong and tell them to shove it. You got to
Yeah.
work together, and you're never going to be successful otherwise. Yeah.
Agreed. Will, what do you think?
Definitely. It was supposed to be, behavioral correction, and as a leader, you definitely modeled that. This wasn't a, hey, how's it going? What's going on? I appreciate your work. You made it very clear that you were direct, succinct, to the point. This wasn't the happiest of moments. There was a problem. We can't tolerate this kind of behavior. I definitely felt it was a correction or some type of reprimand. But I think as a leader, you address the behavioral issues of it. You didn't like the fact that I was addressing someone in a personal way, not the behavior, and you were addressing me. You're modeling that by addressing the behavior in me that you didn't like. It definitely felt like a D3 situation, S3 type approach from the leader. But I did think on the transformative element, you did model the values. You did remind me of the vision of the culture. We critique the behavior, not the person. You made it clear what the overriding issues were. And I think you also, for both from the leader's perspective and for the person receiving the information, I think you managed ambiguity quite well. There wasn't much ambiguity by the end of that interaction. It wasn't the best feeling, but it wasn't supposed to be. There was a problem. So I think it was effective.
This one hits home. This one hits home for me. I've had situations, where a leader didn't communicate this the right way. And I got in the defensive. I'm very much a raise my hand kind of person, right? I like to volunteer a lot where I work at. Any initiative, like, hey, that looks cool. Count me in, put me in. At some point, my leader had this, I would say culture where it has to be aired out first. This is for there's a lot of us in the team, and if something comes in, he wants to air it out, so from an equality perspective, and then kind of take turns. Not everybody can just go ahead and raise their hand all the time. But the way he addressed it was not this way, and I'm glad like we went over this because he kind of kept it in the weeds. Hey, I didn't kind of like what you like. He was very like in the middle, in the gray area, and this kind of like, as I mentioned, it hits home. I was volunteering. It was nothing bad that I did, but I also now fast forward understand that his way of leading is to always keep an equal opportunity within the team, and that's important to who I was working with. And if you would have communicated that way first, straightforward, it would have been a lot easier for our interaction. Fast forward, we're great, but as I mentioned, this interaction hits home because to your point, Kyle, like sometimes we just want to win when I get going. Maybe it's our nature of like doing things and wanting to win. But this also has an impact, right, to team members. And a leader wants to kind of make sure everybody's kind of singing to the right tune, the same tune, for lack of a better word. So being able to communicate effectively around the scenarios are super important. So definitely hits home. But overall, as an improvement, and I wish my manager would have done this with me when that happened, is have a follow up as well. Like, let's have follow up on this conversation, have a check in. How are you doing? Right. Making sure that, look, like, this is how we actually move forward. And this is not supposed to diminish a relationship, or it should actually improve it. And that comes a lot from the leader. And I'll say this, like, it also comes from the employee, right? It's a two-way street sometimes. It's how easy are you to coach, and also, are you facilitating that coaching environment? Look, I can take feedback. That's okay, right? Things are not going to be perfect all the time, but we should be able to talk about it. And this is how I like to be talked about on this particular scenario. So, once again, all good. Thank you guys for your feedback, and this is great. All right, we're gonna quickly move to the next scenario. All right, so we are now down to scenario 5, which is a veteran team who needs some feedback and alignment. In this particular scenario, is a senior CD profile team member that bypass standards. Our leadership style is going to be a high support, somewhat of a low direction on an S3. Our transformational focus is going to be a model the why. And then our tech leadership overlay is going to be an internal facilitation. So once again, we have a veteran that needs some feedback and some realignment. We're going to have William play the leader, and then Kyle is going to play the employee. All right, guys, please take it away.
All right, Kyle, skipping the security review last sprint introduced some vulnerabilities. I respect your expertise, but our processes exist for a reason.
Yeah, I understand. I thought that the risk that I was taking was minimal compared to the pressure of the deadline that was on us, and I really wanted to hit it. So, those risks don't always pay off.
Listen, I definitely appreciate the urgency, but let's discuss. How can we maintain the velocity without sacrificing the security?
Yeah, reframing how important that is, we could probably automate critical security checks earlier in the pipeline so that by the time I'm reaching the deadline, it's not such an imminent thing.
Okay, excellent. Let's trial that in the next sprint and document it in our standards.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think I can reorganize it like that and then avoid this mistake in the future.
All right, listen, Kyle, perfect. Thanks for engaging on the solutions.
Awesome.
Perfect. So kind of a tricky one, right? Because you have somewhat of a veteran that should know better. But at the same time, and security is an interesting one because it's one of those where you could take an educated guess based on your expertise, but if something goes wrong, usually goes terribly wrong. Especially in the type of environment that we live on today, where security is such a big deal, privacy, CPNI, all that stuff. So I think that from a leader perspective, William was very straightforward. He obviously suggested the correction, and he validated that, hey, like, we appreciate you, but we have a process. Okay, like, this has been working for many years, and this is how the name of the company is kind of on the line, right? So we appreciate your work, but this is the process. And he engaged it in a very logical and very autonomy way, so which is good. And then just from an improvement perspective, just outcomes and visibility on sprint reviews would be kind of a deal. I would say, hey, like, this is what we're working with at all times. Leadership, making sure that everybody's kind of involved. That way, people are part of the process. Is kind of what I would say. Whatever that showcasing or checking could potentially look like. But Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, I relate to this one. I feel like I've been in similar situations where I was sort of just doing my work, keeping my head down, thinking I was doing everything right and getting really good praise and feedback. But then, it comes to an audit later in the month and you realize you were missing a key step that, they assumed you were doing or something like that. So, good intentions and good motivation and has the skills, but just, needs sort of a recorrection, realignment on the processes, make sure we need to hit every single checkpoint, that's in our books. So yeah, I think it was a good model, kept things, quick and to the point. This employee understands where their mistake was. We just need to make sure that their methods are aligning with the process. So yeah, I think it was good.
William, what do you think?
I definitely feel like the interaction met a lot of the objectives. I mean, this is supposed to be a feedback and alignment. You could definitely tell it was a veteran type situation. It wasn't about learning about anything new or encouraging or enthusiasm. It was more about modeling the way with internal facilitation, knowing exactly the values of how important security is. Obviously speed and urgency matters, but if you introduce vulnerabilities, we're gonna have bigger problems, and you're too far along for that right now. Being a seasoned, being an S3D3, I think as far as any kind of critique, being that the employee was like a CD style, you could probably get a little bit more into the process of exactly how we're going to get that done, whatever that process might be. But overall, I think it went well. So.
Agreed. Awesome. Thank you guys for the feedback. So, and I think this kind of takes us to our sixth scenario where we, as we are seeing some of the themes of correction, realignment, I would say that some of them could potentially come from, an overload or a burnout team or team members that, kind of, after so many months of working on the same thing and going 150%, some of those things kind of might perhaps start falling through the cracks. So that's our scenario 6 that we're about to address. It's an overloaded team member whose disk profile is a SC, and prioritization support is kind of the theme what we're addressing here. And here we're going to have, we're going to support a strong performer that is overwhelmed by work, and has an SC file profile. The leadership style that we're going to use here is going to be a high direction, high support S2 kind of format, and then from a transformational focus, we're gonna try to do the enable others to act, and then from a tech leadership perspective, we're gonna try to manage the ambiguity. So on this particular scenario, Kyle will be the leader. I'll play as the employee, and then William will help us with the postmortem after our exercise. So Kyle, go ahead, please kick us away.
There you go. Hello, Jaime. I noticed your Jira board is looking pretty overwhelmed right now. There's a lot of tasks still to do. How are you managing everything?
It's been long days, long nights. I would say it's been stressful. Context switching is killing my focus.
Yeah, I can see that looking around at, just a few too many pillars on your board. It's taking up so much that you can't get each individual check mark done. Let's try mapping your tickets visually. Here I'll open up the Trello board and we'll take a look together. If you're looking at this, which pillars do you think are truly critical for this quarter?
I would say the must definitely need to happen are the database updates and the support ticket queues.
Yeah, you've been really excellent at those the past several months. It's been great. So let's shift some of the lower priority work to the on-call team and just get that off your shoulders so you can go back to focusing on this. Let's block out, a 2-hour focus blocks with no interruptions for you. No meetings will be scheduled at that time, so you can just sit down and focus on one of these pillars.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Good. I'm glad to hear that we could take some of that load off your shoulders so you can get, more highly focused and back to your normal swing of things. Yeah, well, also setting up a Slack, urgent issues only channel will help protect your time so that we don't have so many people asking for help throughout the day that you're just spreading yourself too thin. Awesome. I'm glad that sounds good to you.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it, man. All right. Perfect. Cut. So William, What do you think we did right? What do you think we were wrong? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I guess this was a scenario where someone was overloaded, overwhelmed. I like the fact, the leader had a pretty direct approach, getting right to the point. That also models the way of managing ambiguity. You're focused even in the interaction. He did exactly spell out what he's going through, so you're both on the same page. He is a D2S2, so there was a lot of high support, but there was also a lot of you know, looking at what the solutions would be. I think, you guys both manage ambiguity. You explain that you're overwhelmed, you're spread too thin, you're all over the place. It's hard for you to be switching tasks all the time. So I think he helped you focus, redirected to the process. He addressed a couple different ways in which you guys can come together and do just that. He's also showing you support, that he's going to protect your time and keep you from being inundated by unnecessary things. So I think in the end, he did give you some behavioral performance initiatives to work on, and he also gave you a lot of support at the same time. And so, I mean, as far as what could be done better, it being that you're like an SC employee, just focus on the relationship. He's got your back, but I think you pretty much did that. So I think it went well.
Awesome. Thank you, Will. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting when an employee like this is both overwhelmed and just feeling defeated, but at the same time doesn't quite know how to technically fix the problem. They're just sort of stuck, and we've seen this a lot, on production studios teams where someone took on just too much, and then they just sort of freeze and don't really know how to move forward from that position. So here we have a leader that's helping show that emotional support. You've been doing great with these metrics. We want to make sure you feel value to the team still, and not that you're just constantly failing because you're in this stuck position. But at the same time, we want to technically direct them too. So I thought it was a good example of showing how we can reorganize this person's workflow, ask them from their perspective, what's been most difficult for you, what have you been excelling at, and let's try just reorganizing a bit of that workflow so that you can have your focus time to get that awesome work done. And some of the other more frilly things that other people are asking you to do, we can focus that into a different pipeline. So I think that's an interesting response to this scenario.
Yeah, I agree, Kyle. I think this is where the experience comes to show on a leader. I think once again, a lot of things are lost in words, but it's the actions that really come and make the difference, right? So hey, open a Slack urgent, only channel. That's key. He's giving them things that will help them, right? Like, hey, and he's taking action. We're gonna delegate the low priority that you're gonna tell me to some other team, right? So like he's actionally making those decisions, which kind of really references on the high direction, high support. Like we came here to help. Like I came here with a help, not to kind of like to previous scenarios where I'm not here to motivate you. I'm here to like help you with some actionable items, right? Some pivot moments where this is what we're supposed to do. Kind of like that halftime moment, in a game, right? We're like, hey guys, we're losing, but this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
You're gonna switch with this, boom, 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 and then we're gonna go execute,
Totally.
right? So it's one of those where like we're changing a couple pieces here. This is what me as a leader. This is what I'm gonna choose. But you tell me if I'm gonna change this, what is it that we need to change, and then boom, execute, right? So we go into that second half and hopefully win. Awesome. This is a really, really good scenario that spoke to me. So as we move into some of what I would say second to last scenario that we're going to be talking about today, it's one of my favorite ones, which is share success, right? This is just a recognition moment, and in this particular one, we're going to address DS and CS profiles. So just to kind of level set and kind of get us on the mind of what we're going to be talking about. We're once again we're here to celebrate success between two team members with very different profiles. That's kind of what we're trying to address. That's why I said DS and CS. A driven DS and a careful CS is kind of what we're looking to praise here. From a leadership style, we're going to go in a low direction, right? And low support because we're just saying, you did awesome. And then from a transformational focus, we're just looking to kind of like, full circle, inspire and share the vision. That way everybody's kind of like on the same vibe, for lack of better words. And then from a leadership perspective, we're just going to have an external representation overlay. That's kind of the overall goal. So in this particular exercise, we're going to have me as the leader. We're going to have William as one of the employees and Kyle as the employee number 2. For this particular exercise. And then we're going to go ahead and postmortem, just kind of take a look at what went right and what went wrong. All right. So good morning, Kyle and William. Incredible collaboration on the last release, by the way. I would say, Kyle, you fast decision making moved us ahead. And William, your testing rigor prevented us from major bugs. So I really, truly appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, I like having the freedom to be moving fast.
Yeah, and I
Nice.
appreciated our our documentation along the way, making sure it followed our written structure.
Guys, I would love to just duplicate that on our next quarter. But help me understand any suggestions or anything that we can fine tune. I definitely don't want to break anything that is working, but if there's any suggestions to maintain this pace or improve it, I'm all ears.
Yeah, definitely. I believe more real-time Slack updates would only make things go faster, more smoothly.
Okay.
Yeah, at the same time, anytime a last minute change comes, it can be helpful if we have some advance notice for that. I know that kind of hinders the speed, but it really would help us, stay on our track here.
Okay. Excellent, guys. Thank you so much for that feedback. It means a lot to me. I'm looking forward to build this, making this the baseline for our team and obviously move forward on the next quarters with this momentum that you guys are bringing, but more important with the quality and speed that you guys are putting in the table. So once again, I appreciate you guys. I really thank you for all the hard work and thanks a lot. Have a good rest of your day, guys. Boom. Okay. Short and sweet, things that kind of matter, right? I think from what went right, obviously we have 2 different styles. We addressed, the overall output. I didn't isolate the documentation. I didn't isolate the speed. I just said that overall we had a awesome release, right? So that way it kind of hounds the fact that because of you two, I would say independent disk profiles working together, we were able to get that output. So that's really what I want to make sure that those came across. I would say that, from what could be better. I would say it's always good to I would say bragging rights to other teams or other team members. Like, hey, look, Kyle and William are doing great. You guys should take notes, right? Like working together definitely makes kind of things go faster and better. That's something that we could potentially implement. And then like I said, like having a bragging moment. But that's my feedback. What do you think, William?
I definitely think it's an interesting situation. It's like the diversity of the team made the team a lot stronger than by itself. The synergy, like 1+1 = 5 in this case. So I think you sharing success, you're celebrating wins. I think you're also like encouraging. Look, this worked. It worked real well. Let's just keep doing this. I mean, look at all you guys are doing. You're making it known not just to us, but to anybody who's there or celebrating it. I definitely think it was a very more of a veteran style of praise and recognition in S4D4 situation. You definitely inspired a shared vision, brought full circle. I think the only thing as far as a critique is as long as you can allow myself and Kyle to appreciate each other's differences and strength at the same time as celebrating it, that would be the best thing. I mean, I guess it goes without saying. It's and it's pretty obvious, but I guess with different personality styles, you don't always see eye to eye. But in this case, it only made things better. So
Nice. Thank you, Will. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. We just came from a scenario with, high direction, high support, and as a leader, you feel like that's, tough to do. We have to make sure we're supporting on all ends here. In this example, we have a low direction and low support. You wouldn't think it, but it's also kind of tough to nail that. There's a nuance to keeping things going right that are working, making minimal adjustments, but asking, but still encouraging and making sure things go well. I think asking both sides, what worked, what could be improved was a good example of the leadership there. One suggestion I might have is like, if these two are working together well and we continue to have those metrics happen, have these two employees, collaborate on a talk to give to the rest of the company, the employees, on collaboration and synergy, especially while maintaining opposite goals. Because, one of these employees was focused on speed while the other was focused on caution and process. So how do we bring those two things together? And if these are succeeding, let's teach the rest of our company how to do it too.
Perfect.
Nice.
Yep. Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll definitely echo that. All right, guys, this kind of brings us to the last scenario, which is our scenario 8. And this is more of a routine check-in. So it's an expected one, I would say. And here we're going to address a progress review and a redirection if needed. So this, this particular scenario, we're gonna say it's a 6-month check-in that is happening with an ID profile. So we're going to be energetic and creative. Leadership style, we're going to have a high direction and high support. Says we're, somewhat saying, hey, we haven't talked about you in this format in 6 months. So, for the next 6 months, I need you to be very on this and this and this and this and that, right? So, and then from a transformational focus, we're gonna make sure that we encourage and enable. And then from a tech overlay, I would say that from a leadership perspective, we're going to cultivate and we're going to motivate. That's the overall idea behind it. So on this particular scenario, we're going to have William be the leader and Kyle be the employee. And then I'll go ahead and kick us off from a postmortem on what went right and what went wrong. All right, guys, and we'll wrap up. Go ahead, Kyle and William, kick us off.
Yeah, Kyle, your 6-month milestones are looking great. Looking up here at the Miro board, your UX testing project was a major highlight.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that was honestly a really fun project to work on. It was a challenge, but I'm really glad I overcame it and did it.
Yeah. One area to grow, the accessibility improvements. Let's target 90% coverage next sprint. Any blockers?
With that one, I could use some more direct feedback from user sessions. If I have more of that information, then yeah, I think it would be easy to up my accessibility improvements.
Okay, excellent. This is what I'll do. I'm going to coordinate with the research team today. Keep driving innovation. You're a key part of our growth.
That's great to hear. I'm excited to continuing to provide my expertise.
Awesome.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, very, very, very straightforward. It's a moment of saying, hey, what you've done is awesome, but there's also this particular area of growth. And we need to address it, right? So kind of put it on back on Kyle, like, hey, do you have any blockers around this? Like, let's this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this particular percentage. I believe you said 90%. So like you're being specific on what you are looking to see improvement on. You're asking if there's anything that could prevent it from you hitting that target. And then, William is coming back and saying, hey, you know what? Kyle is coming back and saying, hey, this could be, a more direct feedback sessions that we might have with the users. So he's also being specific about what he needs to meet that target. I think that kind of keeps the relationship organic. It keeps it real, and it comes, it's achievable and measurable, right? Because if he ends up in 80% versus 90%, then we can agree that there was a delta that needed to be addressed. So it's very important that when we are addressing some of those things are somewhat documented. More importantly, they can be referenced in that aspect. Okay, perfect. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, like you said, it's pretty a more straightforward scenario. I appreciate that the leader, matched the tone of the employee. They're very energetic, motivated. So it was a gentle correction or a gentle redirection, really, not a behavioral correction like we've seen in some of the more intense scenarios. So keeping it lighthearted, keeping them motivated, but still guiding them positively towards that goal that we just want to nudge a bit. And then asking for their feedback on how to best do that, keeps them in control, keeps them feeling motivated and driven. So I think that's a good tight example.
Nice.
Well, what do you think, man?
I think it's an interesting scenario because things are going pretty well, but like anything, you you can't stop there. You have to push for the best you could possibly be. How efficient can you be? How good can you be? Like let's even do better. So like you're trying to manage ambiguity by giving set goals. You're working with someone in a D2 S2 style, so there's a lot of direction and support, more of a coaching mode, I guess, theoretically. I think there on transformative development there was encouraging future success and giving support and enabling the process. You're cultivating motivation. It's interesting because Kyle felt like it was given in a light approach. I would say my only critique as a leader was being that Kyle was an ID, I could be a little more interested in the collaborative nature of our efforts working together, recognizing the importance of a relationship, not just the process of hitting the goals, but that's just my concern with his personality profile. I want to definitely deliver a message and do it in such a way that he's going to receive it well. So, but I think it went well.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I think it went well as well. Check-ins, setting up goals, giving direction, when needed. It's definitely some of the key components that a leader should have at the bare minimum. So, guys, I think this concludes our exercise and overall with the scenarios that we wanted to cover. I want to thank Kyle and William for participating here with us and collectively just getting this out for you guys to review. It's been a pleasure working with all of you guys, and
thank you.
Look forward to working with you guys in the near future, hopefully. All right.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. This has been really awesome and really educational. Yeah.
Awesome, guys.